gentlemen. I am Tristan Sean Gregson here with Kyle Eck on the ricketiest boat ever constructed for...
so much twine and duct tape put this thing together.
Magic content. Before we get too sidetracked with, though, I have one more introduction to make for tonight's episode of the Magic Box. We are so graciously blessed with the presence of somebody who's willing to pretty much work nocturnally, and not for blood, which is ironic. Usman, who you may know from The Third Power, you may know from I'd Rather Be Cubing.wordpress.com, or his works on Star City Games is here with us. Usman, say hello to the tens of people teeming to hear your voice.
Tens of people? Sweet. I forgot to say hello, so hello.
Usman, as per his request, will be represented today by Ali from Cairo.
We wanted to make some kind of animation for the mouth to move when he would talk, but we
couldn't like a little South Park Canadian guy.
Yeah.
That seems like it'd be way too much work.
Yeah.
Like,
I need
way too much work.
Industrial Light and Magic.
Yeah, the people need to understand that in order to be able to get you into the show, we had to take Eck's monstrous headphones, which he usually uses for things unspeakable, turn them sideways.
Like listening.
Yeah. Create our own little boombox, and then crank Usman as loud as possible, which somehow trumped the idea of Eck and I both sitting here with sets of cans on so we could hear him.
It's fine. I mean, it's a little ghetto, but it'll do the job. We'll figure out some better permanent system eventually.
Right.
But this is also nice, having a guest for our 20th episode landmark.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
One of these days, I've really got to stop and address the whole thing. I hate how shows of this nature, they just go on into infinity with numbering systems.
So you want a season system?
Oh, definitely. I want us
so
to
you want us to have a season finale where
Oh, definitely. We're going to blow out all the stops at a season finale. You're going to think Eck's dead. Really, he was just abducted by aliens. We'll come back with new and bigger features, bigger and brighter guest stars.
Someone will bust in through the door in the middle. You'll never guess who the father of the baby is.
Exactly. Now I just picture Usman in a little doctor's outfit.
Yeah. It's terminal.
Holding a small cube baby.
Little tiny wooden box.
I wish, again, if we'd set this up better, this could have been our big season finale.
I guess.
It could have been its Clue-style murder where the lights go out on the
blown
screen.
the entire budget.
All the tens of dollars that we've amassed.
Tens of dollars of budget, just going straight to it.
So, I think I gave you a fair introduction when you got here, but what would you like the rest of the people at home who maybe aren't familiar with your work to know as you, the Cube expert, Usman?
I don't know. I do cube things. I don't know.
Huge fan of humility. I think that's what we just learned.
Except in Cube.
Yeah.
I'm a 1-1. Everybody's a 1-1.
Now, do you play humility in Cube?
No.
I've gotten flack from people because it's like, hey, we run Moat, which I'm not saying you do or don't. Oh, but you run Moat, but you don't run humility. It's just like another version of Moat. Why don't you do that? And I tell people that I don't want to deal with the rules nightmares and the headaches, personally.
That too, but don't you try to usually just break? It's a lot easier to break the symmetry, I guess, of Moat. It's just well, I have a Vendilion click, I'll kill you with it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's very hard to break the symmetry.
I don't know this.
I guess the theory would be jam humility, then immediately jam Gavney Township.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, play humility. Play humility
OG Johnny or something.
Deck.
Sure.
Make a bunch of guys, I guess.
More guys. Brandon Large would also like to make a shout out to you. He is currently in the live stream. So.
That is a large.
Oh, sweet. I could I just open the stream and then mute it so I could
yes.
Wait, I don't remember my login.
Not only that, but you're going to be 20 seconds behind.
Oh yeah, forget that. That's no good.
Instead, you get to listen.
If I curse?
You get to listen to Eck's dulcet tones as he tells you all of the cards in our pick one, pack one scenario today.
Ah, yes. So this week's first pick scenario, number 1, Azure Mage, Molten Steel Dragon, Geralf's Messenger, Kira Great Glass Spinner, Raphellos Landwar Emissary, Torch Fiend, Thelwar Stone, Ancient Tomb, Green Sun Zenith, Maelstrom Wanderer, Clifftop Retreat, Kessig Wolf Run, Bribery, Polluted Delta, Winds of Wrath. And since you're our guest this week, Usman, what is your first pick and why?
Oh, I had to make decisions. Uh-oh.
If you'd like some time, you can defer.
I remember looking at the email, and some cards that immediately came to mind I think are Raphellos. Usually I just try to tend to reduce it to a couple cards. I was looking at the pack, and there were some cards that immediately came to mind. Like, Raphaelos is one that stuck out. Bribery, and I guess maybe Green Sun Zenith. Like, a lot of the cards are okay. Like, Azure Mage, not bad. Molten Steel, like, a lot of these cards are fine. I just wouldn't take them super high. Like, Azure Mage, okay. Molten Steel, okay. The Dross Messenger, I like a lot, but I don't want to commit that much.
Right,
that
it's a
early.
bit soon for triple black.
Yeah. Kira, solid, but I don't think it's something I'd want to jump in. I think I like Raphaelos the most. I think may come down to Raphaelos versus Bribery.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, and it depends on how I'm feeling that day.
I think it comes down to definitely. I think bribery's in the conversation. I think personally, at least, if I'm thinking about taking Raphaelos, I'm probably just going to take Green Sun Zenith over it because it's far more likely that Raphaelos tables than Green Sun Zenith does, and Green Sun Zenith has a wider application than Raphaelos does. Like, Raphaelos kind of falls into the same trap that Geralt's Messenger does, where the power level is very high, but the commitment is also very high, especially early on. Like, Green Sun is perfectly fine in even, like, a 3-color base green deck, whereas Raphaelos, like, very quickly drops off every non-forest you add to your deck. And it's entirely possible that you get the Raphaelos back out of this pack.
For the very reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah, like... It's a tough one to jump into, and a lot of people are wary. You know, it's like Geralt's Messenger. You know, people look at that card and like, triple black. I don't know. You know, and Raphaelos is kind of a similar thing. Oh, Chaotic Forest, double green. I don't know.
It's a little bit different because I think that Raphaelos is a scaling power level. For each forest you do have,
well, sure,
you're kind of, I'm no math scientist, but I believe that the more forests you have, the twice the amount of mana you can make, and thusly, the bigger the badder the spells. All those things considered, Eck really summarized it up for me pretty easily. I'm taking Green Sun Zenith over Raphaelos. I'm taking Green Sun Zenith out of this pack for sure. I think that cards like Winds of Wrath and probably like Polluted Delta are behind that now. I think that Bribery is a little too swingy to kind of come out swinging with in Cube these days. But Green Sun Zenith is very safe, and it's almost more versatile as soon as you start having access to other colors.
I will agree that Bribery is a bit overrated these days. It's very powerful, but you can absolutely get in situations where there are decks where it's just getting you a 2/2.
Yeah, and that's never fun. Like, I always love playing like the aggressive deck, and somebody plays Bribery. Like, haha, look at this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
See what you got.
Here you go. Like, hand them your deck.
You can really gauge it by the level of excitement and fervor that someone pushes their deck towards you when you cast it. When you're like, oh, geez.
When I'm playing Mono Red, it's always like a, here you go! Like, full extension.
I already drew my Keldon champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like, here, have a Blistering Firecat. Good job.
Yeah. That being said, like, Bribery is also one of the biggest backbreakers against a lot of other decks at the same time. Like,
right, but it's so swingy.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, sure, if I'm going to play against Oath and Tooth and Nail and all those decks,
it's inconsistent.
It's not what I want to do, pick one, pack one.
Yeah, that's agreed.
I think it's a card I almost always will play. I think I like it better. I think it's the best blue card out of that pack, I think.
I'll agree with that.
And I think it's like a card, if I play it, it's a card I can't think of any blue decks that wouldn't want to play it. Like, I think it entrenches me a little bit into blue, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's the best blue card in the pack if we're not counting Polluted Delta as a blue card.
Yeah, that's true.
But I definitely agree that, like, I've yet to see a blue deck that doesn't want a Bribery. You know.
Sure, I've had blue decks that don't want Bribery.
Really?
Oh yeah, the tap out ones. The decks that play Azure Mage don't usually want Bribery. I mean, unless those are the same decks with Azure Mage that also have Forbid.
It's just such a beating.
It can be. I mean, that's what we just talked about. And end of the day, my vote Green Sun Zenith.
Yeah, I think I like Green Sun. Usman, what are your thoughts?
I'll stick with Bribery. Why not? I'm easily swayed.
All right.
There's no fault in taking the blue card.
No.
I don't think you can. You'll never have a pick one pack one scenario and be chastised for taking a blue card.
Yeah, if you just snap off blue in most cubes, I think you'll just do fine.
Right.
Except for maybe like Tribal Cube.
And since our cube is much more Magic history, it's much larger and it's powered. Blue just intrinsically is going to be
way better.
Well, hopefully not way better. We're still working to kind of control these elements.
Yeah.
But yeah, blue in 20 years of Magic, blue's still #1.
All right, so that was so much fun. We're doing it again.
Oh, there we go.
Another pick one, pack one.
We have a special guest this week. I ran into this exact pack when I was trying to mock one up in the tappedout.net cube, so I was like, you know what, this one looks really good.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. Take it away, Eck.
Alright, this one. Viridian Shaman, Bitter Blossom, Burst Lightning, Hellkite Overlord, Covetous Dragon, Ninja of the Deep Hours, Path to Exile, Muldrifter, Ravenous Baboons, Scrubland, Oracle of Moldiah, Vampiric Tutor, Frost Titan, Harmonize, Tephroderm. And for those wondering, Tephroderm is still in this list of the cube as of this week. Consider this pack little picture right here, it's Swan Song, because it's in real life already done.
Yeah, today marks the first cube draft with the technically the Modern Masters update of the cube,
Right.
although
That's what we're calling it.
Modern Masters actually didn't have a bearing on it because it's all reprints, but we do update the cube with every set release, and this gave us an opportunity to kind of move things around. So that if you go to the cube list in the Google Docs, you'll see the things that we've changed there. But hopefully our guest can snap one off here. What do you think, Usman?
I think I like Path to Exile. Just a generic, safe, very cheap removal spell. It's very good at what it does, at just being able to kill anything, very cheaply, and the drawback's not awful. This is like, okay, who cares? Other cards maybe, again, I don't think anything else is really sticking out super high. Like, Bitter Blossom I think is very good, but I think Path is better. Maybe Oracle's a nice ramp card, like Vamp Tutor is another nice safe card, but I think I like Path to Exile just more. It's very efficient at what it does. It's very good cheap removal. It's can play it in almost anything. It's not embarrassing to splash. Like, I think I just like that card the most out of these cards. I think Bitter Blossom's another one I'd probably consider, but I think I just like Path the most.
I'm definitely finding a way to play Path to Exile in pretty much every deck I draft. Like, even as long as it's reasonable, I will always splash Path to Exile Sword Splashers, just because, even the aggressive decks just want to be able to clear blockers for 1 mana. Like, if it's within reason at all, I will find the way to splash them.
Oh, that's kind of why this pack jumped out at me and why I wanted to include it in today's show, because surprise, surprise, two people that cube very, very often, I feel like they deciphered the code inside this pack, which to me, there's a lot of cards that are easy to just take without thinking. Cards like Bitter Blossom, cards like Vampiric Tutor, maybe even a card like Oracle of Moldiah, when really Path is such premier removal, and it's only 1 white, nothing's changed there, that you're gonna find a way to play it in a deck. I mean, we just had a draft deck in tonight's cube draft where somebody had Swords of Plowshares, Path to Exile, and Crib Swap, and that particular player didn't really have any problem with his opponent's creatures.
Now, I think one card that is that we haven't talked about in this pack that I actually do like more and more as time goes on is Frost Titan.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask, I know you guys weren't super huge on that in Prime Titan for a while. Was Frost Titan a recent ad?
Frost Titan's been in for a long time. The thing about Primeval Titan, and our biggest issue with it, was more that the trigger on it is so underwhelming, whereas Frost Titan's like the exact opposite, where the trigger is one of the best parts of the guy. Like, I consider Frost Titan one of the better big, top-end blue guys, just because of your ability to lock down whatever your opponent's doing.
I will go as far as to say the Frost Titan could be like a 5/1, and it would still see as much play and do what it's doing now in Cube.
Yeah.
Because of the decks that it gets played in and the way it closes out a game. You are correct. In the long history, the Frost Titan and Primeval Titan, just this last update, were the ones that we slowly finally came around on. For a long time, it was just white, red, and black that we played in the cube. But blue, it has now with Aetherling kind of 4. Is it 5 now or 4? I think it's still 4. We try to keep it lower of those kind of blue 6 or more finishers that are all very devastating. I mean, Consecrated Sphinx, Sphinx Majorial, Aetherling, and Frost Titan all have just enough French vanilla difference between them all to be very powerful closers in the game for blue.
Yeah, and I think that Frost Titan is also one of the best of those to ramp into.
Yeah, because you can shut down. I mean, it kind of becomes a quasi-lane destruction spell.
Exactly,
worth ramping into.
Being blue-green and just playing Jiraga Tree Speaker into Frost Titan, tap your land is pretty brutal. It just makes it so hard to target it too. when you're tying up one of their land, like even if they have cheap removal for it, like Doomblade or something, you're tapping one of their lands. They have to pay extra for it. Like they probably can't afford to kill it in that fashion, and all of a sudden, like it's just this huge problem that's hard to deal with.
Or even if like you tap down one of their mana rocks, like they're like spend 3 mana on like a chromatic lantern. So it's like okay, tap it.
I mean, God forbid you hit like a Grim Monolith or like a Mana Vault or something. Like that's just disgusting.
Yeah, that's true.
So again, is this a 3-way agreement on Path to Exile? That's a little surprising, but I think it's right. I definitely picked this pack for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, I'm never gonna feel bad about taking Path at any point in the draft. Like, there are very rare instances where I would see a Path and not want it, and they're almost all would be related to my ability to splash it. But taking it first, I don't even see it as a commitment to wait.
No, definitely not.
Like, I can draft whatever I want. I'm just going to try and pick up, Sacred Foundry or, Godless Shrine or something at some point, whatever I'm doing, and splash it and be very happy about it. Alright, so moving on from the pick one, pack ones, now we're going a step deeper into the scenarios. I like this first one. This is a sweet one. Is this an actual draft that you had?
No, this was just a tapped out mock with a couple other people that were in it earlier yesterday.
This is a sweet one.
Okay, well, go on.
So you have 4 cards so far. Your first pick is Mana Drain, followed by Swords to Plowshares, Scalding Tarn, Thirst for Knowledge. The pack that you are past contains Sulfur Elemental, Machias the Lunarch, Liliana's Spectre, Tephroderm, once again in his swan song, Giant Growth, 10th Street Hooligan, Chameleon Colossus, Gitu Encampment, Lightning Helix, Kessig Wolf Run, and Reanimate. What do you take and why?
Anything jump out to you at first, Usman?
Like, nothing, like, card that was mainly jumping out, weirdly, is Lightning Helix, and I don't know if that's right.
Well, I mean, it's hard to say definitively if you're right or wrong. I definitely think Lightning Helix is worth talking about.
I don't know, maybe just be bad. I don't know, it just feels like we're kind of going blue-white control-ish direction, maybe. Maybe blue-white control, kind of.
Well, I feel like this kind of is a perfect segue for what Eck was saying about Path to Exile in the previous pack, where taking that premier single mana removal spell doesn't mean that's a color I'm going to go in necessarily. My pick out of this pack, when I looked at it, is like I'm going to take that Reanimate, and I think that's because I have 2 very strong blue cards. One happens to be one of the best draw discard outlets, and
that's true.
I have like access to one of the best reanimation spells in all of the cube. So to me, I look at this 4-card selection. It isn't a deck. It's not necessarily a strong color commitment. It's just I want to play. I'm definitely going to play many islands in my deck for Mana Drain and Thirst for Knowledge, and then from there the barn doors are wide open, and I'll find a way to make that Swords of Plowshares work.
I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. I'm not taking Reanimate.
I mean, I think this is an interesting pick because it's relatively early in the draft, but it represents like a pretty significant crossroads. Because like you guys are talking about like taking Reanimate, like it's very hard to justify passing Reanimate and then trying to move into that deck like after the fact. Like if you pass Reanimate and then you see Animate Dead or something, and then you're like, oh, now I'm going to do that. Like you've already shipped like the best one, so it's kind of hard to like wheel backwards. So like taking Reanimate is fine, but I think it's also like equally defensible to take Lightning Helix. Like you're gonna be splashing white no matter what this deck looks like for Swords of Plowshares, and you already have a Scalding Tarn, so you could probably try and find some easy to get red, and like Lightning Helix is very good removal and is kind of exactly what a deck like this wants, where being able to get a bit of a life buffer as well as not having to tap mana on your own turn is very good. But I think this is definitely like an interesting, like none of the other cards in this pack really jump out at me as something I would want. Like even though we're white, like Machias the Lunarch isn't what this deck looks really like it wants to be doing. I mean, I guess
you can go so big with that mana drain.
I was about to say you can mana drain into it, which is like super sweet. The red guys, don't really mesh with what's going on. Chameleon Colossus is okay, but again, like, what are you really like? That's just kind of a pile of good cards. It's not necessarily like what a deck looks like.
So
there's no real reason. It doesn't seem like there's really a reason to go jump into a double green card at this point, anyway.
Well, to me, a red and a white mana symbol are almost as scary as a double green card or a double black card in this pack you have access to. I have to wonder if that Scalding Tarn was a Misty Rainforest, how much your decision would be affected.
I mean, if it was... I think that the fact that it's a Scalding Tarn leans me a bit more to Lightning Helix, because the effect, like, double green is hard to do, right? But red-white is also difficult. Like, that's again, a double-colored mana cost, that you're trying to get. But Scalding Tarn is already going to kind of give you a bit of a cheat on that to some degree. So the fact that it's a Scalding Tarn, definitely, like, makes that more of a drive for me. If that had been, gosh, like Flooded Strand.
Okay.
Right? So, like, strictly white-blue. Like we have no... Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, we have no inclination to any other color. We just have, like, white-blue cards and a white-blue fetch.
A blue fetch land is a blue fetch land. I don't really...
No, but, like, okay, say we have Flooded Strand and two blue cards and a white card.
Sure.
Okay.
And you see
at that point, I'm definitely much more interested in taking Reanimate than I am tempted by Lightning Helix.
Mm-hmm.
But because we have the Scalding Tarn, I'm looking at it like we're already going to want to play white because we have this Swords of Plowshares, and we're already kind of getting a bit of free red.
Okay.
So like the effective cost of Lightning Helix gets kind of chopped down to some degree. So I think that it's a lot more reasonable to expect that we could cast Lightning Helix in a deck with Mana Drain, like, as long as we're aware of, like, what we're trying to do.
Sure,
then, like,
I mean, obviously this pick, I mean, to me, like, the Reanimate is now the same argument you're making for Lightning Helix, where our draft, our pick order is going to change drastically based on, like, well, now I need red, white, blue fixing, and I'm going to prioritize it, versus, well, now I have this Reanimate, so now I want to prioritize the cards for that particular deck.
Sure. I think it's, it's a matter of preference. It's a matter of, how you feel that given day. I don't necessarily think that...
I think this is more than preference. I think this really has a bearing on how you're going to draft your deck and what's going to be the easiest thing to make come together. And remember that, Reanimate can just be a one-off. Like, you can hit your opponent's graveyard with it. You're playing the permission deck. You happen to put their Obstinate Baloth in their graveyard off a counterspell, and you need a guy. You can Reanimate it.
At a slight net gain for our fair city.
A 4/4 for a black? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this one, Usman?
I don't know. Like, I think Reanimate also just, like, now that I'm on this Reanimate bandwagon, I think it just, like, it just has the most, I guess, reward. Just like the reward for going into it rather than maybe more of a safe pick. Like, there's a lot of... Like, I think Lightning Helix is very good at what it does, but I still think there's very few, like you said, Tristan, there are very few cards that do what Reanimate does as well as it does. And, like, especially if you were to get something like a Animate Dev, it's like, I guess I can take this and then try to go into it, especially if you're at a table where somebody else is going to take it. And then that can definitely be an awkward situation.
Okay, well, good conversation out of this one. I didn't think it was going to end up kind of going down in that fashion, but...
I definitely think Reanimate has the higher payoff, certainly.
And you're early enough in the draft that I think your risk-reward is worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could just bail on it if you don't see anything worth doing.
Or you can bail on that Lightning Helix if you happen to be sitting to the left of the mono-red drafter or something. Who knows?
Yeah. Alright, let's do another one. Keep them coming.
Alright.
Alright, so in this scenario, we are holding Path to Exile, Revelark, Birds of Paradise, and Gale Powder Mage. The pack we are past is Volcanic Island, Battlespur, Hellkite Charger, Dissipate, Avenger of Zendikar, Juggernaut, Prophetic Bolt, Sever the Bloodline, Complicate, Carnophage, and Grand Arbiter Augustine IV. So, what do we like here?
We're brewing a Lark deck, that's all I know.
Yeah, there we go.
I could definitely tell that this is a huge draft.
This is 100% a me draft. What probably happened was I had that pack with the Path to Exile in it,
yeah,
and then I took it from the previous example, and this is what we've seen so far.
Right.
It's so hard not to take a 2-power guy anytime you have a Rolark in your pool, and as much as I have access to, like, Avenger of Zendikar off of the Go Big Green White Creatures.
So you like Carnophage here.
I like mocking. I think I'm snapping off that Grand Arbiter all day long. I don't know about you guys.
Really? Grand Arbiter is so dirtily.
So is Revelark, but at the end of the day, you
don't need more dirtling in Revelark, is what I'm saying. Like, Revelark provides your 100% of your doctor recommended daily amount of dirtling. You do not need additional.
I think Eck is just like eternally got this like scar from all the matches that we've played where I have had the Revelark, and I just do these things where it's like he attacks into me, and I like Flame Javelin for 6 mana my own Revelark, and get back Karmageddon and Revelark.
Yeah, that's happened. I mean, I don't know. I just like nothing in this pack really excites me. I mean, Avenger of Zendikar is a fine top end, especially with something like Gale Powder Mage and presumably getting some green ramping. But at the same time, like, that's just not all that stellar. Like, these decks just get so without it having Revelark on the spot, these decks just get so smashed by Wraths. Like, and Avenger of Zendikar does not help that, especially because a lot of their acceleration is usually Gaia based, like birds and assorted other tiny men that have mana.
I guess it depends on what direction we're taking the deck. Like, are we being more of just like a green-white ramp deck, or are we going fully on for Revelark? Like, I can honestly see going the Avenger of Zendikar route. Like, and a lot of these cards are pretty much like ignore, like, you know, Volcanic Island, Hellkite Charger, Dissipate, probably don't care enough, Juggernaut, no, Prophetic Bolt, no, Sever, no, Complicate, Carnophage are pretty much blanks. I think they're fine, even like Avenger or even Battlesphere are fine to just like blink, even if it's just with like Gale Powder Mage, or with other cards it can be just like I don't know, Mimic Vat or like Parallax Wave or something like that. I think either of those cards, like, I think that's the direction I'm thinking, either Battlesphere or Zendikar.
Go big.
Yeah, I'd probably just go big, like try to ramp into something big, and then I guess have it so Revelark and Gale Powder Mage and I guess birds try to like go along with that strategy. I don't know if I'm completely wrong. I don't know if that's the way I should be going. And I guess if I had to choose between one of those two, I guess I would choose Avenger. But
I mean, there's nothing wrong with having like the Revelark, whether it's white blue or white green or fully banned, you know, however you want to like set it up. The Revelark deck pretty much always has room for one bruiser at the top of the curve. And if it plays well with the blink effects that you're going to prioritize in this deck, all the better. I mean, either one of those with actual momentary blink is insane.
Yeah.
Gale Powder Mage, very good. You know, Flicker Wisp. You know, there are plenty of cards like... The Revelark deck is just really looking for... I mean, 2-power guys, yes, but triggers... You know, like, this is really a triggers deck.
No, yeah,
like,
this is the deck where, again, you want the Mimic Vat, you want the Parallax Wave, you want the Venser, you want the Momentary Blink. And to me, a lot of those things interact well with the blue, you know, the Crystal Shard and such. And to me, you know, maybe I end up drafting blue-white Lark splashing green for something. Maybe it's not Birds of Paradise. Maybe I end up drafting green-white splashing blue where Arbiter fits in really well. I think we both have valid arguments talking about, you know, this is a great opportunity to pick up the 7-drop that's going to make your deck, that's going to be the top end. Sphere, I think, is a much safer pick because who knows where the road will take you from here. Green may dry up or just not give you a lot of options. It's funny to me because the way you guys kind of prioritize these cards, I actually think that Sever the Bloodline is a much better card that I would have stopped and just kind of mentioned. But I guess since we have the Path to Exile, it's not as important. Like, if that Path to Exile had been a Mother of Runes or something, I would be a little more inclined to stop and talk about Sever the Bloodline. But at the end of the day, I hear what you guys are saying. I don't condemn anyone for taking Mirror Battlesphere at any point in a draft if they're not playing like.
Is it just me or
aggro guys?
I just don't value Sever the Bloodline very highly. It's just so slow. Like, yeah, you get whatever you want in tokens or whatever, but like you're paying 4 mana on your own turn to do it, and then later you get to pay 7 mana. Like, it's just very clunky.
I don't know.
And like Revelark decks are mono clunky already.
But they want to have access to all of these things, and they also want to find value. If you're not playing the color blue, cards like Revelark and Sever the Bloodline really go the distance. I mean, that just becomes a separate argument about what Sever the Bloodline does and what it doesn't do. At the end of the day, I'm taking that Arbiter. I'm happy with it. What about you guys?
I think it's probably Avenger or Mirror Battlesphere. Like, you know, I want a big top end to be able to go to steal games back that I'm behind in, and both of those cards are really good for that. I mean, obviously, I'm looking to prioritize the lower end of the curve, but you know, there's always room for one at the top, and those are two of the better ones. I think, had either of those, either Battlesphere or Avenger of Zendikar, been like something, say, like a Sun Titan, I don't think this would even be close.
Yeah.
I think, like, do you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
if the pick was Arbiter versus Sun Titan as opposed to Arbiter versus, like, Mirror Battlesphere?
Yeah, I definitely think I would probably just snap pick Sun Titan if that was the call.
Yeah, I mean that's not close.
Right.
I want Sun Titan over to that situation.
That's true.
Yeah.
The Sun Titan's just ridiculous.
I don't know if that's a close enough one to call.
I don't know. I mean, like, Sun Titan is like another like top end that I like for that deck a lot. You know, I mean, I don't think of Revelark as a 2-power deck necessarily. I think of it as like the end of the battlefield trigger deck.
Yeah,
most of them just happen to have 2 power.
Sure, but I mean, like, our Arbiter does a whole bunch, in my opinion. Like, it can power the wonky tricks. It can kind of be that sphere effect to keep your opponent off of things while you're trying to set up the soft lock of body double or whatever you have access to. They're out there. Those tools are out there.
It just feels like a slow roadblock a lot of times.
Revelark does?
No. Arbiter.
Oh, even if he's a roadblock, that's fine. You even get him back when your Revelark dies.
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's not part of my plan.
Yeah.
All right, well, good discussion. I like those packs.
Yeah.
Now, Usman, remind the people at home what size and power level. Do you have multiple cubes, or do you cube regularly with multiple cubes? What's your experience these days?
I mainly just I have a 460 card powered cube, and I have like a 400. I think it's like 420-ish pauper cube, but I cube a lot more with my regular cube, just because people seem to be a lot more interested in cubing just like with a regular cube. But I think pauper cubing is also just amazing. But I tend to cube more with just like with that powered cube that I have.
Now, for pauper, is pauper all commons or is that peasant? I can never keep
Pauper's all commons. Peasant is commons and uncommons. Like the term, I don't quite get why.
Yeah, I can never keep them straight.
I don't remember.
Quite got it. Like
they need to be two like further apart terms, like peasant cube and hobo cube or something. Like,
I was gonna say.
So you don't like transpose them in your brain. I think that's my problem. It's like flipping it back and forth.
I don't know the monarchy's system of rank.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with like.
It's not like
Dark Ages, like
Squire cube and Lord, like
fiefdom cube.
Yeah,
like,
whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Now, 460. Why is that number so sweet for you?
I mainly did 450, and then just like I decided to add 10 more cards for multicolor card. Like I think it was when Return to Ravnica, Gatecrash. Decided to add one of each multicolor, and I was mostly happy with it. Also, I've been lately getting 10 people drafts, and I like having some extra variety. Just like not knowing exactly what's in the pool, just having a little
There's a little mystery.
Well, it's also just a little bit of like, hey, like if you do 450, then like for example with 10 people, you always know there's going to be a Force of Will, like for a daze or like a snuff out cards to play around. And with like the 10 cards that are left, like there's a small chance, but it may just be not there. And I think I like that little bit of like little mystery in there.
As opposed to being 100% certain the card is in the pool, you get to have this little bit of mystery, and maybe it's not out there.
Yeah, I think the 100% certainty pool, it really changes like how you have to build cubes. I was having a conversation with someone at our shop about his cube like a week ago, and he runs like the exact 360, and I guess one of the strongest decks in his cube is blue-black Tezzeret, because you can always get the Tezzeret. So like you just draft expecting to see it, and it will eventually show up.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It's just like it requires you to be very focused on curtailing like spikes in power level for certain strategies.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, for starters, like I am not a fan of the cube is the pool and you always see it out there, and that kind of always reminds me of like drafting triple of a set with a common like is a linchpin for a deck. Like when you draft triple time spiral and you really need Death Spore Thallid. Like that's a good example. That's the cornerstone of your deck. Like it's a common. If you're drafting a triple time spiral, you have 3 chances to get it. So you're working with it, but hopefully you're smart enough and you want to win a match ever that you have a plan if it doesn't show up. It's not a guarantee. Like it's a common. You have a chance, 3 chances to open it. A lot of opportunities to get it if you're drafting the Thallids aggressively. But it's not like a cube scenario where it's like, oh, again, perfect examples. I know the Daze and the Force Spike are in this draft.
Yeah.
I know that my opponent is playing Islands. I should probably just play around it to completely invalidate its existence.
I think it's interesting, like, the smaller a cube is, the more, like, from a drafter's perspective, the smaller the cube that I'm drafting, I'm looking to be in more and more narrow strategies. Like, because it's more likely, because, like, so say there's some, a theoretical, Tinker deck or something like that in a 360 cube, right? If I take the cards that are, if there's Tolarian Academy there, or there's Workshop or Metalwork or whatever, these really narrow, very powerful cards, no one is going to fight me for them, so I can get all of them. Like, being in just, like, I'm aggressive red deck, or I'm control, like, you have so much overlap with other people, they're going to fight you. But if you're in a very, very niche as you can possibly be in strategy, given the fact that you see every card, you can get rewarded immensely for that, because, like, one of the things about our cube is, like, for example, things like Oath of Druids or Tinker, because they're not in every draft, like, you cannot draft expecting to see them. Like, sometimes you can, and you will get lucky and get rewarded, but other times you won't. But like, Oath of Druids is like a great, like, if Oath of Druids was in a 360 cube, for instance, right? If you wanted to, you could just draft entirely around expecting to see Oath, because you're probably going to see it.
Right, and one of two things will happen. Either, if you're drafting with, or I guess it has to be 8 people, 7 other people are just going to ignore its existence, and you're going to get it, as though you were setting up for it the entire time. Or someone's going to kind of, dick you somewhere along the road, just to try to take that out of there. It's interesting to me. It's a good example of a way to really have a good barometer for your cube at home. If you play with 360 and you have a really narrow card like Tolarian Academy, that could probably end up being a very negative draft situation where the people who are aware and know how narrow that strategy is can really kind of go all in on it. Alternatively, if there isn't enough there to support a card that's so narrow, you probably need to make some adjustments to your cube to either support it or just take it out entirely. So yeah, maybe. But these kind of lessons are good things where, we play in a 700 card environment where a card like Tolarian Academy could probably go under the radar for a really long time before you really got to see if it had huge power swings or was just, not enough to make anything happen ever.
I like it.
Yeah. So for me, I love variance. Every time we're here, I'm talking about how I like to make as many different card combinations come together. There's many different ways where the A plan of a particular card or strategy isn't always going to be there. You have to find new ways to win. Have you ever really wanted to just go big, or are you really happy with just over 450?
I like the size being on the smaller side. Like, I remember, like, before, like, one of the really annoying things is not having that much room to play with. Like, I remember when I had like 400, I think 405 or something, when it was really small. It got to a point where I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm just expanding my cube. And it was getting to the point where I was just like really, really struggling to keep it at a smaller size. It's like, this is just like, I just want to expand it, just get more cards in there.
They keep printing sweet new cards.
Yeah, as it turns out, especially creatures.
Yeah.
These creatures just keep getting better.
Yeah, I feel like you could make a cube at this point of spells from before 2000 and creatures from after 2008, and it would like be like on almost equivalent power level.
I think I sorted out my cube at one time, and I think it was pretty close. Like, the creatures were very, very, very heavily weighted towards new border. Like, since the new border frame, and like most of the spells were old frame, and I didn't realize that till somebody built. It was at the WMCQ in St. Louis that happened. I think it was last year.
Yeah. Where
somebody drafted essentially a, birthing pod deck with like pretty much all new creatures, like new border creatures, and I think there was some exceptions like Flame Tongue Kavu, but pretty much everything else was new. I was like, huh, I'm gonna go and count them, and yeah, it was just like really like disparate. Like, it was pretty heavily weighted, and I was like, huh, I guess that makes sense. Like, a lot of the old creatures were like the exceptions to the rule, like the Mother of Runes, Flame Tongue Kavu, Goblin Welder, like those kinds of creatures that just kind of, I guess, I don't know if I'd say broke the mold, but were pretty atypical of the time.
I think the irony is that most of them have abilities that are just spells that were good back in that day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting that, the creatures that have survived from the like long ago in Magic at this point in a cube environment are ones that have like abilities or do things that they would never put on cards now, because like the creatures that were high powered 10, 15 years ago based on like efficiency just get so blown out of the water by modern context.
Well, yeah, anything printed pre actual modern. I mean, Mirrodin's a good barometer here. That was like the one lesson that was really easy to learn for R&D. It was like, Juzam, whoa, too big. Juggernaut, whoa, too big. Casting cost, power, toughness, we have to keep that stuff all in the down low. And so, for a long time, with like Spiritmonger being the only exception, card evaluation for creatures as players was real easy. Oh, it costs 5. Well, it's going to be no bigger than a 5/5.
I mean,
no chance that'll be the case.
And I mean, like, look at a card like Negator as an outlier. Right,
well, right, and that's the
Negator is like one of the most powerful old time creatures.
The upside, downside that we're so used to. Maybe look, Vin, or the old roommate. When cards like Drinker of Sorrow or whatever would come out, and be like, oh, this has to be good, right?
New Negator,
5 power, 3 mana. Like, it's a different world, sir.
Yeah,
not even close.
I mean, like if they printed Negator right now, no one would even play it.
No.
Like, it would not be a deck.
I mean, it would be like laughably bad, probably.
Yeah, it would be like uncommon and like almost undraftable.
It's really a shame it's not on the. It's a shame it's on the reserve list, because that would be fun.
That'd be just like see what would happen with it. Nothing.
Well, they could try to print like a new version, just like they did with Plague Sliver and Juzam Jin.
Yeah.
And just find some way to print it, and of course, just like with Juzam Jin, it was like not played like Plague Sliver was. It was like. Got printed, became like bulk rare.
I mean, like, look at Obliterator. Like, Frixate Obliterator. Like, if you would like, so similarly to like taking cards from the past and bringing them into a modern era, right? If you take Frixate Obliterator and throw it in a time machine and send it back to like Urza Block days, like, oh man, you are ruling the roost with that bad boy.
Imagine even a card like Resto Angel back then. It's like,
like.
It wouldn't be. Oh, come on. That's different. Restoration Angel wouldn't even be that good, because there would be no creatures for it to interact with.
We could get Blink Manowar. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Blink Manowar Plague Winter.
I mean, like, Thragtusk.
The Drago decks wouldn't even want to go for that. They'd be like, we have Stalking Stones. I think that's more efficient than your 3-power guy.
That's right. You don't have to keep a spell slot.
We just use Stones.
Yeah, that's how far we've come with Magic. Yeah, sure, the post-2000 era. We're getting way off track. But this is actually a great opportunity for us to move between topics. The Modern Masters it's over. It's come. It's come. It's gone. As far as I'm concerned, we've all
with a mighty roar.
Yeah, and we're left here in a time where usually Magic players would be pretty excited that a core set's coming out, but it feels like
everyone's in burnout.
Right. It's almost like we're just kind of in standing water with this set. Have you talked much about the M14 spoiler yet, Usman?
I have a little bit, like on the podcast, like Young Pyromancer and Archangel of Thune and stuff like that, and the new Garrick, which we haven't talked about because I was spoiled yesterday. I guess we haven't recorded a new episode since yesterday. But yeah, just like yeah, I mean, I guess there's been some interesting things out there, but yeah, it just I'm one of the few people. It seems like I check the M14 card image gallery. I'm like, come on, something new. Something new, maybe something got spoiled in some random Japanese magazine, and nothing's there ever.
Yeah.
Well, the Duel of the Planeswalkers parade really kind of gave us a lot more than we'd normally be getting. I mean, although I guess Duels of the Planeswalkers kind of is the new normal, so who knows what the real future will hold for us.
I'm just hoping new Chandra is not bad. Like it seems like with a lot of the material, like they're pushing out, like. It seems that they're putting on a lot more marketing material than it seems like even like Jace was. Maybe that may be wrong, but it seems like they're doing a lot. Like even with that, like design a skateboard and have Chandra on there. It's like okay, sure,
but
all this.
To me, it's interesting because the competitive players all have this assumption where it's like, well, they wouldn't, Brand wouldn't go full bore like this unless Chandra was really playable, and we're gonna have a 3-mana Chandra.
Yeah, because that's so
it's
relevant.
Gonna be good. And to me, whenever I hear these things, it's like, you guys really don't. There's a pretty big disconnect between R&D, brand, competitive play. I mean, like
casual play,
like
new markets, like
yeah.
the whole. I mean, I think new Chandra. I imagine will be likely at 3, if only because we already have a 4, 5, and 6, and I can't imagine they're going to go up to 7 on her.
Oh wow, that'd be awful.
Like, who knows? They can do anything. Planeswalkers are such an open book that it's so hard for people to make such wild speculations. I mean, at this point, we just know her name for real, right?
Yeah,
it's Chandra Pyromaster.
Pyromaster. That's bad news for everyone who wants her to be a 3-casting cost Chandra.
Pyromaster, what is this?
So, I mean, I feel like with brand and all the marketing and all this stuff, the priority on that was not like, all right, guys, it's really important. We're gonna push Chandra. She's gonna be the face of Magic for a year. We really need you to make a good one. We need a $60 Chandra, new Jace the Mind Sculptor.
All of these words are
all right,
things
artists.
Not here.
Make a hot Chandra art, and then we're gonna put that everywhere.
Right.
Whoever comes up with the hottest Chandra, we could sell goggles or whatever.
Yeah, I'm hanging my hat on this whole situation already. I mean, I don't think that the new Chandra is going to be spectacular. I mean, if you want to be something that's going to be embraced by the entire community, that's going to be super excited, you would have a Chandra that had a line of text that says could be played from the command zone. Like that would have more hype for M14 than any kind of 3-mana exciting tournament playable Chandra. In my opinion.
Although to go for a bad pun, I think like the players that there have been enough bad versions of Chandra, where it's burn people, where it's oh, this new Chandra, and almost all of them have been pretty bad. Ablaze is of course the poster child for a bad Planeswalker, but Firebrand never really did much. Nalar is okay. In Cube, I think in Cube Nalar is fine. Even if it's just dinging a creature, but even then I was just I've been falling less in love with it over time, I think just because Red 5's been getting that much better. We've got Zealous Conscripts and all that fun stuff nowadays.
Chandra looks pretty bad in comparison to Thunderbolt Hellkite, I'll give her that.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, I like 4-mana Chandra in Cube just because the spells are so much higher powered.
She's a combo card. It's so different to evaluate. If you plan on going to the ceiling with Chandra the Firebrand, you probably have a mediocre deck.
Yeah,
I found Chandra Firebrand is either when she's good, and I kind of think I said something like this when like during preview season or something like that when it came out. It's like it's like when it's good, it's really good. When it's terrible, when it's like not really good, it's just awful. And it's like, okay, I guess you have like your board is mono 2/2s, and it's like, okay, I'll ping you for 1. It's like, crap.
I mean,
this is awful.
Way too often, it's like a 4-mana Prodigal Sorcerer with haste. It's a cunning spark mage that costs 4 that they can kill if they want to.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, the only reason we have it in the cube is for wildfire, Jackal Hops-esque interactions that you can have that kind of Rod of Ruin hanging out after the dust has settled.
Sure.
I don't look at Chandra the Firebrand being like, this is a good removal spell, or this is an excellent combo card. I mean, I actually had her in my deck today, and my hope was to copy a Rampant Growth before I cast Wildfire or something, and I never even had the opportunity because all of my opponents thoroughly dispatched her.
Yeah, she never lasted a turn.
No. I mean, when I played you, I actually got to play you today. Every time I cast her, you would always have Falconwrath Aristocrat immediately afterwards.
One time I had Geralf's Messenger, sack it to Carrion Feeder, pump up the gems, kill your blocker, attack it for 4.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Well,
Nice.
I had a mighty spicy brew. Bazaar of Baghdad. I'll leave it at that.
But to stay on the topic of the spoiler, we do have Usman to talk about the 6-mana Garruk, which is obviously the most, I'm not going to say exciting, and I'm not going to say water cooler card of this set either. I'm not sure what to say, but it's there, it's here. The big hullabaloo that went around Twitter yesterday is this really just Garruk ablaze, or is this Garruk the dramatic entrance? Please tell us what you think, Usman.
Well, actually, I don't know. I actually put it in the draft today, and like when it got spoiled, I think this is actually kind of my like. So there was a concert I went to tonight at like doors were at 6, show started at 7, and at first I was like, okay, I can't cube today because of this concert, but you know, because cube night is on Tuesday, and part of the and I think like because there were infy bad opening bands. Like and then I was like, you know, maybe I can swing doing cube today, and I think part of the reason was just so I could put new Garruk in the packs to see how it ended up doing. And I think like my first impression, because you know I loaned my cube out to somebody to babysit it for a while, was that I think it was the first like I obviously didn't have any actual data. It was all just theory crafting at that point. Like my first impression, and I think that can be kind of a trap to fall into, is like, well, it's dramatic entrance, and then it's like dramatic entrance +1, and then you can do that, and then I guess you do things, and it's not that, just doesn't really do much. And to be honest, I still don't think I'm super huge on the new Garruk. Like, it's definitely the worst. Like, I had somebody, I seeded into the packs in the draft, and I think, like, it ended up better than expected, surprisingly. Like, at first I was like, sure, why not? And had I not been seated immediately to the right of the resident green drafter, I probably would have forced it, especially since he passed me a Prime Titan, which I mistook as a signal that he wasn't in green. He was. And so I decided to give it I told the person, like, whoever ends up with it, try it in your deck, see how it is. And he was in kind of like a green, kind of rampy deck. And it ended up being a little better than expected. Like, its +1 is really nice. I don't know, I feel like I'm just rambling. Sorry.
No, I mean, admittedly, we have not tested this yet. We've kind of just been, coffee table discussing it. And
similar to the point of this entire show.
Yeah, exactly. We've been showing it, My biggest problem with Garruk is that, he's kind of the same problem I have with a lot of Planeswalkers, which is Planeswalkers that do not defend themselves are not good.
And for every mana you add to the casting cost of said Planeswalker that doesn't defend him or herself,
it gets
the worse it gets.
And worse.
Yeah.
I mean, like...
And that's, I think, a big thing, too. Like, I don't know how easily you can rely on using the -3 to defend it.
Right.
And then you have a Planeswalker with 1 loyalty in play that costs you 6 mana.
Woo!
Like,
although to be fair, if you get its draw ability, it's really good. Like, I think its draw ability feels like it's being underrated. I think, like, not just in this discussion, but I think in general, like
the lead the stampede effect or the emblem.
Oh, emblem, whatever. Who cares?
Like, no,
emblem ability doesn't matter.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. I think that something that was also being bounced around on Twitter a lot is you have to be creature-based ramp to not only have this guy out at an effective time in the game, but also capitalize on his plus ability, where he's not, acting as a Tezzeret Agent of Bolas, where it's like, okay, well, I'll peer through depths into nothing, but I'm gonna make my guy bigger. And I know, obviously, you're gonna play more creatures in your deck than you are artifacts generally.
My biggest problem with this guy is that even if you consider like his minus a defensive ability, like to protect him, that means that he's only capable of defending himself, like fighting for himself, if you already have good cards in your hand already
that you could have been casting. Instead. Like, are you like maybe you're jumping from 6 to like 7 for Avenger of Zendikar? Is it like the best possible thing you could do? In our cube, it's one of the better things you could, I guess.
Like Terastodon,
Broodmate Dragon.
Like, we don't play Progenitus.
That card's bad. No.
Yeah, no. Bad. I mean, I think that, like, was it you who called him Garrick Ablaze?
From, like, minute 1, that's what I saw when I saw this card.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, he might end up being better than I think he is. I just think that, like, the majority of the green decks who are going to, like, reliably be able to get to this cost and play him are going to be like, alright, +1 him, I'll show you Forest, Harrow, Farseek, Sakura Tribelder.
Yeah, that's like the worst. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, like, it's just so hard to have like a high enough threat density in a deck that can also reliably get to 6 mana and want this effect at that time.
And when do you have the chance to kind of pull the trigger on this card versus putting a real threat into play?
Yeah, like, the same deck that could be playing this could be playing a card like Rampaging Baloths instead, at the same cost. And Baloths, like, works better with ramp than Garrick does. Like, because your ramp turns into 4/4s, whereas with Garrick, your ramp turns into nothing. Like,
yeah.
I
mean,
that's just like an example at 6.
I don't know. Out of the gate, I didn't like this card. Out of the gate, it doesn't make creatures for itself. It has no way of defending itself.
Yeah.
And even the emblem in Limited, especially for Cube Limited, is kind of shoddy. It's not even, make a million 6/6s based on your lands good. It's a lot sketchier.
Yeah,
so, for me, this is an easy non-include, will never see the light of day on this card for me.
I'm going to go ahead and say it, though, right now. Ballin' so hard on that promo. Holy shit. That is awesome. Like, obviously this is like the mock-up, but if these in real life look anything close to this, like...
Well, that's the official release.
Yeah. But I mean, like, in, like, actual physical cards actually look like this. That is so fucking cool. Oh my god. I want that.
I mean, you understand that they print the rest of the Planeswalkers that way, too. So,
yeah.
Like, an Ajani Color of Pride will also have that same look.
Right.
Oh, and Ajani would look nice with that.
Yeah,
and a Jace Memory Adept.
Jace Memory... Liliana of the Veil.
No, yeah. And that's also, like... I think that's also, kind of goes... I'm thinking of any Planeswalkers, like, that don't defend themselves. Like, because the Liliana of the Dark Realms made me think of that, too. Like, I think a lot of the Planeswalkers that can't defend themselves, like, I think Liliana was one of them, I think.
Yeah.
And I think apparently she was going to have, like, one more loyalty in development, and then they pushed that back. Maybe I'm just thinking that.
I mean,
it's believable. It's really weird to think that her, kill, her kind of, like, strangling, soot, mutilate type effect out of the gate would also kill her. It's really strange to think that would be the way she was initially printed. So,
yeah, and it feels like maybe Garrick, like a collar, whatever, Frank collar, whatever. It's like feels like
collar of beasts.
Like, yeah, it feels like it costs like 5 mana at one point, or like it's loyal. It's some of its costs were tinkered with, and they eventually went with that. Which that's what it kind of feels like when I was looking at the card, and also like. Yeah, I think that's what I kind of felt like when I looked at it as well. Was just like it feels like it got tinkered with, like it it was something else and it ended up as this.
I could definitely see that. I mean, having heard stories from development teams on both Chandra Ablaze and Sark and the Mad, those were both cards that were going to be a lot more aggressively costed with very little changes to what their abilities were, that at the end of the day people kind of freaked out about and threw extra mana on.
Yeah.
And what happened with Chandra Blaze?
She was going to cost 5.
Huh.
So you could, like, Seething Songer turn 1 in a lot of formats.
Huh.
So, like, you could have a Wheel of Fortune and still have a Planeswalker in play.
Would you cube a Chandra Blaze at 5?
I would definitely give her a shot, and I would allow crazy...
I would try her, like, over regular Chandra for...
get out of town. I love Chandra Delar.
Like, for a minute. Like,
Yeah,
see how it works.
I would try both. Like, you know, like that meme, like, why not both?
We have a couple of friends that every once in a while will just kind of, like, casually bring up in conversation that we need to add more cards like Desperate Ritual and Pyretic Ritual, and I have to tell them how just incredibly insane these ideas are and that they're just not cards.
Just, like, bring up a picture of Grumpy Cat, like, saying no, like, there. There you go.
I mean, we've been joking around recently about trying to put something like Empty the Warrens into the cube just for value, but I think it would almost send the wrong message to people.
Yeah, you're gonna, like, empty the warrens? That means all the storm guards are here! Ooh! Mm-hmm. Like, you know... Now I gotta prioritize taking Luxenhire.
I mean, to me, the real travesty isn't Chandra costing 6, Chandra Blaze costing 6. It's more that Sark and the Mad never got to have his day in the sun at a red, a black, and 2 colorless. I think that card would have been awesome if it only cost 4.
Wow. That would have been sweet.
I mean, it's only one.
That would have been yet another 4-drop for red-black.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest problem with, like, these kind of Planeswalkers is, like... So, the best Planeswalker... Like, if you think of, like, game states as being you are ahead, you are behind, or the game is relatively neutral, the best Planeswalkers work in all 3 modes, like, very efficiently, right? So, like, Elspeth Nightmare is a great example.
The latter 2 being the most important.
But, I mean, like, if you're ahead, Elspeth jumps your guys and puts up the pressure. If you're behind, or the game is even, she can expand your board and either give you blockers or start generating threats, right? Elspeth is excellent. Jace the Mind Sculptor, right? If you're ahead, you can lock your opponent out. If you're behind, you can bounce. If it's even, you can brainstorm. You know, cards like this, like, they just don't play very well from behind at all, and they're just too awkward and clunky to even play well from, like, an even keel. Like, if you get to, like, lay this nuke Eric and plus it, because you're already beating down so hard you're not worried about, like, them cracking back at it or whatever, then that's awesome, but, like, a million other cards could do the same job.
Well, also, if you're playing the split card Stream of Life for 5 plus Lead the Stampede, like, that's not something I would want to do in Cube either. Like, if you made that a fuse card for
if you just printed, like, Lead the Stampede, you gain 5 life for
double green and 4 and jammed it in the cube, I don't think people would play it.
No, probably not.
Although, to be fair, you could say that about, like, a lot of cards. You could say, like Liliana the Veil or something is this, like, Edict, they gain 1 or something. Or, you know, like, I think there's a little bit of a, like... But I definitely know what you're saying. Like, it...
I mean, I think that...
It's because he can't defend himself. I mean, obviously the Planeswalkers that have the ability to remove threats, it's harder to try to make these evaluations. But we have to say for Garrick that the army has to be there already for you to kind of mess around with this card. Yeah. Otherwise, you already have to generate the draw to make him as good as we all want him to be, and that's that, you know, that classic magical Christmas Land scenario that Magic players are so good at coming up with.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, how can you say Garrick's bad? You're obviously going to put Progenitus into play. You're obviously going to reveal 3 creatures and then do something cool with him next turn.
I mean, I think if his -3, like, if he actually called beasts and, like, put, like, 2 3/3s into play as his -3, this becomes a very different card.
And
that's kind of the sad thing with this guy is, like, he's the only, I think, Garrick that doesn't make creature tokens at all. It's just, like, totally reliant on your deck itself. It's like, I'll get the top 5. And granted, I think they specifically chose green just to avoid stupid stuff with, like, you know, what's it, Eldrazi or, like, Gristlebrand or something, which is...
Yeah. I mean, and that makes sense. I mean...
And it's kind of an unfortunate part of those cards themselves is, like, those cards tend to constrict what can be created. Like a card like Show and Tell was very innocuous for a while until like.
Well, yeah, and Show and Tell is a card that keeps getting better because they keep printing Omniscience and, you know, 15,
creatures are only going to get better in Magic.
Well, and, you know, they keep printing, like, bomby, splashy, crazy mythic enchantments or wacky artifacts, you know. Like a card like Omniscience, you know, as just another example of just like, oh, here's another stupid thing you can put in play with Show and Tell. Like, they're not going to print... the card only gets better over time. With
it's like a card like Stoneforge Mystic, like cards that are reliant on others. Like it's not like it's very hard to make those kinds of cards worse. Like it's just gonna get better from here on out.
Oh, absolutely.
So we have sufficiently judged Call of the Beasts, schoolyard style. We have we have picked out everything that might be better.
Thumbs up. Card, thumbs down.
But it is a nice kind of additional talking point we get to have this week, which is with this very unique, with this very different print style that they have for the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive promo, which I'm still not so stoked about. I mean, I don't think that's really a great opportunity for Magic players to get access to this really cool product. I mean, Comic-Con is much bigger, and I know Wizards really tries to reach a broader audience, but I think this is going to be worse for the collecting community, playing community, than if they'd just done nothing.
Welcome to Comic-Con. Here's $500.
Assuming you stood in line. Assuming you stood in line for 6 hours. But what it does do is it's another kind of like small nudge in that direction of Wizards being willing to print more unique products, more very different products for them, and maybe it's one more little glimmer of hope for us seeing that kind of Q product we so desperately want to see.
I think that's kind of a bold jumping point to make. I mean, I think, you know, they're always going to be willing to print interesting variations, alternate art, alternate foiling. You know, this is just an expansion on that, and, you know, getting comic book artists to do the prints, you know, kind of intentionally at Comic-Con. You know, that's more just, you know, hey, we're trying to make things that cater to different people and different audiences, where we're still a collectible game. These still have value to the community, you know, things like that. You know, I don't see them, you know, all right, we're gonna make a cute product that's gonna be all full art, you know, like
I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that this is another little glimmer of hope into them printing more specialty and different products that we may